I'm Mr. Beat, and now I'm going to say some dirty words. And hey, will you stop censoring me?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Now, capitalism, socialism, and communism.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Watch your language. I am offended.
Anyway, let's first hear what the critics have to say about capitalism.
You're a very, very successful, very rich filmmaker, apart from everything else you do. In a way, that is capitalism. I mean, you've got a business.
Is it
You have
really?
a company.
Oh.
Well, isn't it in its purest sense, isn't it?
What pure? There's nothing pure about capitalism.
Is there not, though? Has it
It's
just
not
been
capitalism.
corrupted?
Unfortunately, over time, capitalism has spun wildly out of control, transforming rapidly from a force for positive social change into a brutal system of oppression that's holding humanity back and destroying billions of lives.
So how many people in contemporary society, let alone across capitalism's long history, die due to this economic system? Capitalism is global, and around the world 8 million people die from lack of clean drinking water. Roughly another 8 million people die from hunger, and on top of that, another 3 million die from vaccine-treatable diseases. Adding in room for error, let's just take it to a grand total of 20 million deaths per year due to the lack of food, water, and vaccines.
Nice. Now let's hear all the great things people have to say about socialism.
Socialism has failed every place that it has been attempted.
How many people under 30 and 40 know so little about the legacy of socialism and the suffering that it's caused? Socialism is grim, it's old, and it offers you no tomorrow.
Socialism is going to win. What does that mean, and what is socialism?
Well, it could win at the polls. That's the problem. It's very intoxicating to people who don't know any better.
Right.
And the interesting
Those
thing
rich
about
people, they have too much money.
Yeah. The interesting thing about socialism is that no matter how many times it fails, people expect it to succeed.
Now let's look at the facts about socialism, shall we? Venezuela, a rich country blessed with bountiful natural resources, is now a hellhole.
What happened in Venezuela? They call that democratic socialism, but they don't have toilet paper, and it's less equal than ever.
As we're now seeing in Venezuela, all of the promises that the left told us and we warned against now are shattered. People are starving to death.
Venezuela, eh? Okay. What about communism?
Why is communist so much less a term of revulsion than Nazi? Communists killed 70 million people in China, more than 20 million people in the Soviet Union, not including about 5 million Ukrainians, and almost 1 out of every 3 Cambodians. And communists enslaved entire nations in Russia, Vietnam, China, Eastern Europe, North Korea, Cuba, and much of Central Asia. They ruined the lives of well over 1 billion people.
Guevara, in the name of communism, killed lots of people. He said, "We executed many people by firing squad without knowing if they are fully guilty."
But why is it that the atrocities of communism are almost completely ignored by our teachers and dismissed as just a blip in history by most? 100 million people perished under communist dictators in the last century.
Alright then, communism. So it appears there are a lot of strong opinions about these 3 words, but there is confusion about what they mean. These 3 words have also been weaponized. People often use these 3 words to attack and marginalize others. People misuse these 3 words. They conflate them with other words. For example, often people seamlessly interchange communism and totalitarianism, or capitalism and fascism, as if they mean the exact same thing. Dude, you're mixing an economic system and political system, for crying out loud. And there's also this false dichotomy.
There are some, Democrats mostly, who believe socialism should replace capitalism. Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Replace capitalism with socialism? Who the heck is proposing that?
You think that's ever going to happen?
You know what? I'm starting to get a little worked up about this. Let's look at some dictionary definitions of these 3 terms, alright? I need a dictionary. Can anybody get me a dictionary, please? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alright, now let's just take this dictionary here and look at the definition of capitalism and put that up on the screen, okay? Capitalism, an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods by investments that are determined by private decision and by prices, production, and the distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition in a free market. Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, it says economic system, meaning a way resources get around and the way people trade stuff. By private or corporate ownership. Okay, let's just say private ownership of capital goods. Okay, what are capital goods? Goods used to make other goods. All right, let's go on. By investments. So basically, folks trying to get rich that are determined by private decisions, prices, production and distribution of goods determined by competition in a free market. Okay, let's simplify that. Folks trying to get rich by competing with each other. Everything else is implied, isn't it? If you are competing in a free market, there is no government stopping you when trying to make money. You are making decisions on prices, production, and distribution in order to make a profit, and you are competing with others for customers. This is capitalism.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Capitalism? More like late-stage capitalism. It will die soon, you greedy scum of the earth capitalist pig. All you care about is yourself.
Come at me, bro. Anyway, capitalism has been around for hundreds of years. By the 1500s, it really caught on, and there has been no turning back. A word that has been even more of an insult lately, more so than capitalism, is the word socialism.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. So now you're a dirty socialist? You know, socialism killed 100 million people. I mean, Venezuela? Hello?
Well, crap. We've got 3 different definitions here in the dictionary, okay? Socialism. Number 1, a theory or system of social organization that advocates the vesting of the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution of capital, land, etc. in the community as a whole. Number 2, procedure or practice in accordance with this theory. Okay, then, well, we don't have to really go over this definition, then, do we? And number 3, in Marxist theory, the stage following capitalism and the transition of a society to communism, characterized by the imperfect implementation of collectivist principles. So first, it's a theory or a system. Why is socialism considered a theory and capitalism not? Probably because it's never been fully practiced. But it is another economic system. But instead of private or corporate ownership, we are talking about the community as a whole as the owners. With capitalism, it's about owning capital goods. But with socialism, it's about owning the production, distribution, land, everything, and everyone owns that. The community as a whole makes economic decisions, not the individual. Based on that definition, have we ever had that? No, not really. Not since farming became a thing, at least. Now, that third definition is the historical definition of socialism, and often leads to even more confusion about what socialism actually means. Marxist theory? Yeah, socialism, even though it had origins throughout human history, was first articulated by 2 dudes named Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Get it? Marxist, because it was named after him? To this day, Engels is still mad it's called Marxism and not Engelism, by the way. Anyway, the 2 criticized capitalism and said it would eventually be overthrown by a new economic system, aka socialism, and eventually communism. Socialism was just a transition from capitalism to communism. Marx and Engels said socialism would consist of everybody owning the means of production, and that the workers would control and manage it. By the way, Marx is the reason why we even have the terms socialism and communism.
Communism? Don't even try to talk about communism, you un-American commie. I always knew you were a red. You probably are a spy for the Soviet Union, aren't you?
But I have to give a definition to educate the viewer.
You'd have to do a whole lot more living in a communist society.
Well, not necessarily. So the dictionary says, communism. Number 1, a system in which goods are owned in common and are available to all as needed. 2, a theory advocating elimination of private property. Now remember, that's communism with a lowercase c. So, pretty similar to socialism, ain't it? Again, it's both a system and a theory. And again, a theory originally by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Goods are owned in common, meaning you take what you want and you share everything. And yeah, no private property. Pretty ambitious and unrealistic in this day and age. Now, have we ever seen communism in practice? Well, we've seen it tried, but it failed miserably. It needed totalitarianism, and I don't think Marx would have been a fan of the Soviet Union or China because he wanted a stateless society.
That's what a communist would say, you dirty socialist.
Anyway, let's review, shall we? Capitalism is an economic system in which there's private ownership of capital goods and competition in a free market. Socialism is an economic system, but also a social and political theory where the means of production is owned by the community as a whole. This usually means the government has to step in, which is why you hear libertarian-type folks freak out about it. Communism is an economic system, but also a social and political theory where private property is completely gone, and we share everything. Cool? Okay, well, here's the thing. Those three words have been tainted over the years, and their definitions have morphed and evolved to a point where they almost are meaningless, okay? They aren't always just talking about economics. Karl Marx was talking about a political upheaval just as much as he was talking about an economic one, which is why it's better to learn about economic systems in a more accurate way. In reality, when looking at factors of production or what goes into producing stuff, there are 4 economic systems. Number 1, traditional economy. Customs and traditions guide the factors of production. It's informal, and there's usually no currency. Number 2, command economy. It's top-down. A central authority, usually the government, guides the factors of production. There is usually little input from the people. Number 3, market economy. I mean, capitalism in its purest form, basically. Consumers generally guide the factors of production. It's bottom up. And number 4, mixed economy. A mix of all the other 3, man. And guess what? It's what the majority of the world has. Sometimes the government steps in to try to manage the economy. Sometimes it's a completely free market. Sometimes it's even based on traditional values.
Because there's a difference between a public good and a commodity. Can you explain to me the difference between public goods and a commodity?
Well, in economics, a public good is a good that is, I believe, non-excludable and non-rivalrous. So
exactly.
Yeah.
It's also important to know the difference between the 4 categories of goods in economics. It looks like this on a table. So we've got rivalrous, meaning if someone consumes a good, it prevents someone else from consuming it. It's a zero-sum game. Excludable, meaning you can prevent consumers who haven't paid from accessing it. So on the table here, we've got private goods. Examples include food, clothing, cars, personal electronics that are excludable and rivalrous. And we've got club goods like cinemas, private parks, satellite TV that are excludable and non-rivalrous. And then we've got non-excludable. This column here has the rivalrous, which is common goods, fish stocks, timber, coal as examples, and public goods here with the non-excludable, non-rivalrous, such as air and national defense. I mean, the public goods spot here, let's pay close attention to that area. Many people do start to freak out and call somebody a socialist when people want to add things to the public goods category, such as healthcare. Is healthcare a public good? That's a great debate to have, but one for another video, as it's time to wrap this baby up. So there you have it, the difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism.
Well, I think you're a fascist, actually.
Nope, that's another video I made. And remember, when people use those 3 words, ask them what they mean when they say it, because chances are their definitions are all over the place. Thanks for watching. A shout out to my newest Patreon supporter, Saud Al-Kuwari, who pledged at the George Washington level. Thank you, Saud. And my video next week is going to be released on Saturday, that's the 24th, instead of the usual Friday, because it is part of a huge collaboration with a bunch of other history YouTubers. You're gonna like the way it looks. I guarantee it.